The knock came just as the sun was sinking behind the tired rooftops, casting long shadows across the small, worn-out porch. It wasn't the kind of knock that neighbors made. It was firm, confident, deliberate, the kind of knock that carried authority. Inside that modest house, a single father froze mid-step, his heart suddenly pounding as if the past had reached out and touched his shoulder. He had spent 20 years trying to bury what stood on the other side of that door. And now it had finally come knocking. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of forgiveness, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that no matter how long it takes, hearts can still find their way home. 20 years earlier, Daniel Reed had been just another ambitious young man with a dream and a best friend who believed in him. That best friend was Michael Lawson, now known to the world as a billionaire CEO, the face of a global tech empire, a man whose name flashed across business magazines and television screens. Back then, they had started everything together in a cramped garage filled with outdated computers and empty pizza boxes. They promised each other they would rise together. But when the investors came, when contracts were drawn, when power began whispering promises into ears, something shifted. Michael chose the boardroom over brotherhood. Daniel walked away with nothing but a broken heart and a pregnant wife. Life after that was never easy. Daniel's wife, Sarah, had been his anchor. She believed that love mattered more than wealth, and she stood by him when their tiny startup collapsed without his name attached to it. But life tested them harshly. Complications during childbirth took Sarah's life, leaving Daniel alone with 3 newborns, triplets he named Hope, Grace, and Elijah. In one single day, he lost his partner and gained 3 fragile reasons to keep breathing. Raising triplets alone in a small town where opportunities were scarce demanded strength Daniel didn't know he had. He worked construction by day and repaired old electronics by night. Sleep became a luxury. Grief became a quiet companion. There were nights when the lights flickered because he was late on bills, mornings when he skipped meals so his children could eat. Yet despite the exhaustion carved into his face, Daniel never let bitterness define him. He taught his children honesty, humility, and the importance of standing by people you love, even when they fail. Meanwhile, Michael Lawson's empire soared. His company expanded across continents, his face appeared beside world leaders, and his wealth multiplied into numbers Daniel couldn't even imagine. But success has a strange way of echoing in empty rooms. For Michael, the higher he climbed, the more he felt the absence of the one person who had believed in him before the fame. Regret is quiet at first, but over 20 years it grows louder. And so, on that golden evening, Michael stood in front of Daniel's weathered door, his polished shoes out of place on cracked concrete. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in his mind. He didn't know if he expected anger, a slammed door, or a man who would refuse to even look at him. What he didn't expect was that the door would open to 3 identical faces staring up at him with curious eyes. The triplets had Daniel's gentle features and Sarah's warmth. They looked no older than 19 now, grown enough to carry themselves with quiet confidence, yet young enough to still radiate innocence. For a second, Michael couldn't breathe. He saw in their faces the years he had missed, the life that had unfolded without him knowing. Daniel appeared behind them, his hair now streaked with gray, his hands rough from decades of labor. The moment their eyes met, time seemed to collapse in on itself. There were no dramatic words, no shouting, just a silence heavy with history. Michael hadn't come for publicity, he hadn't come to show off wealth. He had come because a recent medical diagnosis had shaken him in ways business failures never could. A rare heart condition meant his future was suddenly uncertain. When doctors told him he might need surgery with no guarantees, he began re-evaluating everything. 31 specialists could measure his heartbeat, but none could measure the weight of regret pressing against it. He confessed that night, not in excuses but in humility. He admitted he had chosen ambition over loyalty. He admitted he had thought success would erase guilt. It hadn't. He told Daniel that every award, every headline, Every standing ovation felt incomplete because he had lost the only friendship that had ever been real. Daniel listened quietly. 20 years of struggle had carved patience into him. He had every reason to reject the man standing before him. Yet as he glanced at his children, he remembered the values he had raised them with. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting pain. It was about refusing to let pain control your future. The triplets, sensing the weight of the moment, stepped forward with kindness that surprised even Michael. They had grown up hearing about the uncle who had once been part of their father's dream. Daniel had never poisoned their hearts with hatred. Instead, he told them that sometimes people make terrible mistakes when fear of failure clouds their judgment. As the evening stretched into night, something remarkable happened. Walls began to lower. Michael saw firsthand the life Daniel had built without wealth, but rich in love. Photographs covered the walls, school awards, birthdays celebrated with homemade cakes, Sarah's framed picture placed carefully in the center of it all. It was a home built not from money, but from sacrifice. In the weeks that followed, Michael made a decision that shocked the business world. He didn't just offer Daniel a position in his company, he offered partnership, true partnership, with full acknowledgement of his past betrayal. But Daniel surprised him again. He declined the corporate title. Instead, he asked Michael to fund a local innovation center in their small town, a place where young dreamers without connections could build ideas without fear of being pushed aside. Michael agreed, without hesitation. Construction began within months. The center was named Second Chance Labs, dedicated to Sarah's memory and to every underestimated dreamer. But more powerful than buildings or contracts was what healed quietly between two aging friends. Michael underwent surgery with Daniel by his side. The operation was successful, but what truly saved his heart wasn't medical skill. It was reconciliation. Before we close, if this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and comment. Your engagement helps stories of hope reach more people who may be waiting for their own second chance. And right now, I want you to comment one word: forgiveness, if you believe it has the power to change lives. On the day the Innovation Center opened, the town gathered in celebration. Daniel stood beside Michael, not as a forgotten partner, but as a brother restored. The triplets cut the ribbon together, symbolizing a future built not on pride, but on humility. 20 years ago, one man chose ambition over loyalty. But on that quiet evening when a CEO knocked on a single dad's door and 3 young hearts opened it instead, destiny rewrote itself. Because sometimes the richest legacy isn't measured in billions. It's measured in the courage to knock and the grace to open the door.